Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 3, Episode 8. I am your host, Alejandro. With me is a special guest,
Sebastion. I'm back with a vengeance. How you doing, everybody? How you doing, Alejandro?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Sebastion?
Pretty well, pretty well. Thanks for having me back on the show again.
Yeah, and again, once again, thank you for jumping in. I lit up the bat signal in the sky. You always answer it with no problem. Especially now, this has been the one that I've been waiting on because now Paul is traveling. My good old co-host is on his way. He got out of the Shire. He's on his way to Mount Doom, aka North Carolina. So, and my dog is there in the background, just as expected. She's been quiet all this time, and now she decides to be a complete ass.
But, no, she's I am the star of the show. That's all she's saying at this point.
That's the thing. I wish you had heard the early episodes from the show. I used to record my room was right by the street from where I'm at, and there was always this vegetable man that would without fail, he would always pass at the time that I would be recording, and you could hear in the background saying vegetables, 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 potato, 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 potato. So that was early lore for the first 10 episodes. So you can ask Paul about the vegetable man, and he's gonna laugh hard about it. Yeah, it's crazy. Can you believe it's already March?
Yeah, this year's flying by. Absolutely flying by.
Yeah, it's even more than others. I'm God dang, that's quite the. It feels already very eventful in a good way. Last year felt very eventful when it was around this time we were just hearing about a certain big acquisition that I'm just sick and tired of hearing about this day and age. But now it feels like it's been eventful because we get so many games, and legit good games, I would say. Instead of just the one big one that turned 1 year old this past week that completely dominated the conversation for 3 months. It's good. It feels good to see different games kind of get into a conversation for good or ill. It just feels more exciting, and it's not just hearing the same old. But we'll definitely gotta talk about that a little bit because this is the X Button Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing. Available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. This one's definitely gonna go a little later than Thursday, but our recording time is what I'm gonna be aiming close once Paul is now settled for where he's moving to become a Friday show. We have already announced that shift may be happening, so the shift is coming soon, to be permanent. But until that happens, Sebastion, tell me, what have you been playing?
Man, I have been playing a lot of different things. For one, I've been playing this little game called Atomic Heart. This game came out, did not review very well, and
75 Metacritic, I think it was.
Yeah, even some 5 out of 10s, I think I saw across the board, and it was just I was curious. I really was, because I was just everything leading up to this game, the trailers, all the gameplay kind of looked good. I mean, it kind of gave me some good Wolfenstein, Far Cry meets, BioShock kind of vibe.
BioShock is the big one for me. That's what that's what it looked like more, because we haven't had a BioShock game in 10 years. This is the last one, so that's what caught the attention.
It very much had that dystopian sci-fi kind of vibe to it, and I was just I kind of want to try that out, alternate history kind of vibe, and I tried it out, and unfortunately I have to agree with most of those 5 out of 10s. I think this is a okay game that some people might have fun with, but I feel there are a lot of how do I put it? There's a lot of gameplay mechanics that I feel were half-baked in this game that weren't quite thought out, but they're creative ideas. For instance, they have a button to where you can just press the button and you can suck out all the
it's very satisfying. It's because
my goodness.
Yeah, especially there's the double shoulder button that you press to get it going to X-ray. You scan around everything and you see the things that can be looted, and then from where you are, you just use the force to start looting everything.
Yeah. And I'm you don't have to go around and do the what is it, Fallout method of trying to just individually go in each and everything. You can just vacuum them all up. You're essentially Kirby in this game. You're just vacuuming. You're sucking up everything all the time, and I like that.
What is it with you and Kirby all the time? Because you're the one that convinced me to get Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Kirby is an underrated Nintendo character. We always get Marios of the world. We always get the
Zeldas.
Zeldas of the world. Yeah, Kirby is just doing its own thing. He's having a good time, and like he's holding down the fort while everyone's waiting for the Marios and
Yeah.
Zeldas of the
Oh
world.
yes, I would agree with that. But yeah, with Atomic Heart, I did play it a little bit because I had mentioned it before in the show. This was going to be one of the games that I was going to review for Season Gaming. The things that we never got code for this one. So we usually in Season Gaming, whenever we don't get code, we can decide if we want to review something or not out of like our own volition. And I was playing this on Series S, and I was just not feeling it. Like it had like a few of those cool elements. It's like I'm a big shooter. I like story-based first-person shooters more than just competitive ones. And I was like, well, I haven't had one of these in a while. I think this could be like something that's gonna hit the spot. And the gunplay didn't feel right. The mechanics are like they're a little half-baked while still trying to put a lot out there. Like you're gonna have like all these million different abilities and like the neurotic things that you put like in your mind and all that. And especially the initial sections, the combat I found it really frustrating, especially with those damn robots. The whole like, oh yeah, these are going to you have a dodge button in the case of the Xbox. You have to press the B button to be able to like dodge, and you absolutely have to dodge if you see robots do like the red attack. And sometimes that comes way too quick. You don't have like sometimes the button like right there to be able to dodge, and they hit you. They don't go down because I only got like the shotgun in the thing that I played, and the shotgun didn't feel good at all. No. And it was like I didn't feel like the hits were hitting like I wanted them to. So in a way, I was like, I even told the Season Gaming guys, like, so I had committed to that one and Destiny 2 Lightfall, which I'm going to talk about a little later. And I was only going to have a week with this one, and I heard that this was pretty long, and I wasn't really feeling it, and I was more excited for Destiny. So I was like, do you guys mind if I don't review this? Then they were like, don't worry, we didn't get code for this, and it's not gonna move the needle. We already saw like how it's being reviewed. I was like, thank you. Thank you. I got out this one, and it's sad because I wanted this to be good, and it just sucks that it seems like all the new IP that we're getting is not hitting. Like that's something that I'm noticing since like Callisto Protocol last December. It was like I enjoyed it, but it was like it wasn't great, especially in seeing how great the Dead Space remake was. I was like, that's sad that the remake of like the old one is better than like the new IP from the same guy that created it. Forspoken absolutely like didn't live up to anything.
But you love Forspoken, yeah.
Even though I enjoyed it, but I recognize that it wasn't what it was positioned as. In fact, its position is what hurt it more. Had it been sold like what it was, a B tier kind of game, and not at that price, it would have been better received. But it was a B tier caliber game, being sold at like at high tier price and being positioned as like one of the tentpoles for the console. So that's why like it fell flat. And we're gonna talk a little bit about Forspoken a little later. And now like Atomic Heart, like this spiritual, they basically Thanos themselves into like put the gauntlet on and be like, we'll do it ourselves, a Bioshock style game, because we haven't had a Bioshock in a while, and it still didn't hit. And I feel the worst part, I don't know if you agree with this, is like, what is it with the cringy dialogue in games these days that it feels like it's peppering everything in places that they shouldn't belong. Like, I'll say this, I found the dialogue in Atomic Heart and what I played even more annoying than in Forspoken. I think Forspoken was more in on the joke of what it wanted to be, and this one is like, yeah, I don't think I need the character of Atomic Heart to be this quippy Nathan Drake style like Russian dude speaking with also like his machine, kind of like it was like, are he also speaking to a cop? Also, what is it with like cringy dialogue speaking to cops? That's becoming like a very notable thing in 2023. But yeah,
I'm right there with you. This kind of does mirror Forspoken in a lot of different ways. They both are they feel like they're AA instead of AAA games. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if they were advertised, like you said, as AA experiences, maybe the reception would have been, a little different, because I'd almost put these two games on the same caliber as Hi-Fi Rush as far as like the scale and scope of what these games are, not necessarily like quality. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like they're double the price of Hi-Fi Rush. Now, if it was marketed in a similar way of Hi-Fi Rush, I think a lot of people would be more responsive of what these games are. And you know, these games both, well, you know, I'll just speak about Atomic Heart. Like it's an indie game that's trying to punch above its weight that doesn't quite fit in that weight class.
And I will always like applaud the attempt at trying to push
Mm-hmm.
above your weight, because sometimes like when you push above your weight, you get really like surprising results. Like for me, the indie game Hades is bad. Hades was a straight up indie, but then like something like Hellblade. Obviously now Microsoft owns Ninja Theory, they're publishing Hellblade 2, but Hellblade 1 was an indie game.
Yeah,
It was like
for
an
sure.
indie game with like looking like a AAA game, and that's what made it very impressive. And it was priced accordingly also. Atomic Heart had the advantage that this was also on Game Pass, but I will say this, like, I'm starting to get a little worried that Game Pass is starting to like enough things have been released, especially from third party, that doesn't seem that high quality, like a high caliber, that it almost feels like they're just taking the Xbox bag, like so many like other peers in the industry kind of say, like that they know that they don't have quite a banger, but putting it on Game Pass kind of like lower the blow of it not being like this high tier game, which was like ranging from the 8s to the 5s in like the review. But it's on Game Pass, so it's like your barrier of entry is not having to pay $70 for it. But I feel that's also a danger, because we're getting into Netflix territory of, are they flooding the zone just with content or just for content's sake, and not like really curating it with the high quality? Like even on Xbox, to me, like that stink was felt more with Halo, especially with Halo Infinite, because it's like Halo Infinite, it's taken 2 years to finally have almost all its features. It had to cut co-op campaign, and when you think about how Halo used to launch back in the day, when it wasn't even live service and didn't launch into this into this kind of service, it's like those games felt a little bit more complete. So I know that Game Pass, I respect what it does to like being able to like open the market more for people to have like a cheaper way of entry to be able to experience a bunch of games instead of having to like plop $70 for many, including Atomic Heart. That's $70. So I was like, I was playing it on Series S. I didn't like how it was looking. It was hitchier, but it was running mostly well. But I saw the Digital Foundry video that the PS5 and Series X versions were way prettier. I was like, ah, damn it. And I don't have an X. I have a PS5. And then if I go to PS5, I had to buy for $70. And it wasn't a game that I really liked from what I played, that I was going to plop those $70. Even with the arrangement I have with Paul, where we have a company account where we pay half for games to be able to split evenly and be able to experience more games, because we haven't gotten codes from devs yet. So that's how we gotta say. But it was still like, if I like the game more, if it was like, man, I really like this, I hate how it looks, I'm gonna pop the money to play something I really like, it was like, I'm not really feeling this, I think it could be better, but I don't want to pay 70 for it. Maybe
I'll say
down
this.
the line.
Yeah, I'll say this. You mentioned the Microsoft Netflix comparisons with the Game Pass. I think that's what they're going for. Because, I mean, let's be honest here. When's the last time you heard of a Game of the Year contender or even a Game of the Year caliber game going on Game Pass? They're just not trying to do that.
Yeah,
Netflix.
Forza Horizon 5.
That's true, but I mean, it only won on one outlet, so to speak. I mean, everywhere else, like they were more.
Plague Tale Requiem was like the only one that I'm like, okay, but that's the only one in a year.
Those two, those two, I would say, but like for the most part, I mean, it's very akin to. My point is, it's very akin to Netflix, to where like, when's the last time you heard of a Netflix movie like being a award-winning movie, or
probably
even
The
nominated.
Irishman, like
that's it.
4 years ago, so.
Yeah, but most of those, the catalog for Netflix it's a platform for everyone to find something that'll entertain them, and that's basically Game Pass. And there's a lot of shows on there that would get canceled on network TV if not for the fact that they were on Netflix. So
and even then Netflix is like no longer has that safe cushion. How many things that they've canceled also?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, Game Pass is mirroring that, and I think they want to mirror that. I mean, but they also probably want the HBO model, the HBO Max model of, hey, we do have tentpole franchises as well as our immense portfolio of games and such.
And that's what they're missing. They have attempted. They have strived saying that what they want is to be able to provide those kinds of experiences that are gonna double back into. Yes, it's like we have this high quality, this high caliber thing, and you can get it for real cheap. That's kind of where they're missing. That's the one area where, even though PlayStation may not be as diverse in their catalog currently, like Xbox is attempting, at the very least, you know that the things that PlayStation are releasing are like high quality, and especially made from them, like things that Xbox hasn't released anything that has started development with them and released that has been like this high quality thing. They have gotten things that they bought halfway through and helped finish, like Psychonauts 2, one of the better reviewed games of the generation. They didn't start that game, but they helped make that game better.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tim Schafer from Double Fine basically mentioned that it's like the Microsoft purchase like allowed us to take an extra 2 years to add even more boss fights and clean up the act, and that's like one of the cool. And even though it's multi-platform, that's still like the best versions are over on Xbox, and that's a really nice game. So that's it. So they it's like Xbox is like just in this weird position that I hope that they don't dilute their brand into like thinking that releasing all these games that seem big, and then when you play them, it's like, this is mid. So I don't want Game Pass to be like, this has the Game Pass stink all over it. It's like, I don't want those kind of conversations out of that service, because they need to remain competitive. Hi-Fi Rush is one of the few times that I'm like, oh, okay, now you're playing with fire now. Like, it's something cool and unique. So
I'm gonna be honest though. I mean, like I'm with you. I think there is an importance of narratives. I say that all the time on the Single Player Experience podcast. Narratives matter in games, but like, I think for them, they don't care about that narrative as much. Like, as long as people are still subscribing to Game Pass, as long as they still have active players, and as long as they're still getting people to enjoy the popcorn flicks that is like a Squanch Games. What was
High on Life?
High on Life, yeah, like a Squanch Games High on Life, or like a Ubisoft Far Cry 5 and 6 whenever it comes onto the platform.
Yeah,
like
5 is currently there.
5 is currently there. They're gonna get 6 eventually at this point. But like, my point is like, I think they live by that mantra of like, hey, as long as we're slow feeding them constant popcorn flick games, like everyone's gonna be okay until we can actually get those tentpole games there. And
they better, because it's like they released like recent financials of like where like PlayStation currently is like sales wise, like they're still like way ahead in more like this year generation already felt more competitive, kind of like going in. It felt like it wasn't lopsided, but still like PlayStation is going ahead even when they're like acting so stupid in that side. Like they're still kind of like ahead in the momentum. So they gotta, and especially 2022 with having nothing, that cost them dearly. It's like that, like they basically showed us like that cost them so dearly, especially when at that time Sony still now I feel like if you go to like any store right now, you see PlayStation's finally retail. Yeah, like finally sure. That was like that felt like the white whale, like being able to go to like a Walmart or a Best Buy or a Target or any other mom and pop shop, and the idea of seeing like those things sitting in the shelf was like impossible to think of. And now it's like they finally fixed their pipeline. It's like, man, Xbox is like, you needed to like get all this thing ready, because now the brand of Sony is just stronger, like objectively, like around the world.
Yeah. So, and just imagine when Spider-Man drops, well, the biggest IP in the world at this point. Imagine when Spider-Man drops.
Exactly. It's just like Sony right now don't need to announce anything, even though I want them to, because they still have Spider-Man coming, and they're saying that this year that's gonna at least cover them for this year. After that is like, that's like the big question. So
Wolverine.
That's for 2024. So
yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, they still have Wolverine down the pipeline. I'm like, they just have IP after IP just coming though. I'm like, that lead just doesn't feel like it's gonna slip anytime soon.
Oh no, it's like when I saw it, they're like a 12 million ahead. I'm like, yeah, it's like you can kind of tell the tale, which is like, I wish it had been tighter. Even if one was like, I wish it had been tighter, because that just leads to more competition and better competition within everything. It's just better for us gamers. So
yeah, I'm right there.
So yeah, so after Atomic Heart, Sebastion, I see here you playing City Skylines.
City Skylines, man, this is
that
like
your comfort game?
It is one of my comfort games. It is one of like the ex-girlfriend of video games in my life, to where like it is one of those things I just keep going back to over and over again whenever I'm feeling like, hey man, like I'll see City Skylines just in my like saved queue on my Xbox, and I'm like, I haven't played with you for a while. Like let's jump in and see how the city's doing, or let's create a new city. I'm feeling a little froggy today, and I just jump into that game, and like they have so many improvements all the time, and always like improvements, quality of life, like improvements in that game, to where like I'm shocked this game is that old, as old as it is, and I always see like it's always in my queue for like updates for downloading updates and stuff like that, and I'm like, what can you continually to add in this game? It's the gift that keeps on giving. To me, like this is almost my version of The Sims, to where like I don't want to mess with like people's lives, so to speak. I just want to control.
Technically, it was made by the same people that made The Sims, right? From what I understand.
If it is, I can understand that vibe. I don't remember who the creator is, but like, yeah, it's fun. It's just generally fun. I love creating a city. I love like managing everything, and I love like making traffic as bad as I possibly can get, and then trying to fix that problem of fixing traffic.
I didn't realize that the PS5 and Series X version of City Skylines like recently came out.
Yeah, that's why I'm jumping back in. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why I'm jumping back in, and it's fun, man. The load times are magnificent. The water looks beautiful. The city is vibrant.
Load times is like a make or break for this kind of like simulation game. I think it was one of the Civ games had like atrocious console loading. So that's the beauty of like this generation of the quick load times in all three of the big systems.
Yeah, I this is one of those games to where I'm like, if you never played this game, now's the perfect time to. And if you have played it and you just loved it but haven't played it in a long time, it's the perfect time to get back into it. Is it on Game Pass
by any chance?
Yeah, it's on Game Pass as well.
I might give it a shot. Like
if you like city builders, though, I wouldn't say this is for everybody.
Once in a blue moon, maybe one of those may click. So who knows? Like sometimes weird games click for me when that shouldn't click for me. So.
I'm gonna tell you, this is the like. Here's the pitch that I have for the audience listening. If you like games to where like if you just want something to play in the background while you're doing something, like for me, like I might be editing a podcast, or like for me, I might be like doing something completely different, creating a thumbnail or anything like that. If you're one of those people who like can multitask effectively and like play something while you're just listening to something, this is the perfect game for that. Absolutely the perfect game for that.
Yeah, usually I have like such a backlog of podcasts. That's the kind of game I like. Those gameplay like heavy games that I put this in the background to multitask. So because Atomic Heart didn't click with me, I was like in this like strange period while I was waiting for Lightfall to launch for Destiny 2 that I was like, what do I want to play? I started like trying a bunch of different games, and I still had Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga installed. So for all listeners from like earlier this year, like when we did like with me and Paul our first episode for this season, where we're like doing our top 10s and we talked about our honorable mentions and most disappointing, this one was in the most disappointing section for me. Not that, because how we talked about most disappointing this past year was like games that even though we still enjoyed, we thought were gonna be better than they were. And this was in my list specifically because I absolutely love Lego Star Wars, and what I played was like not grabbing me. And Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga has this thing that if you're playing like on like chronological order from like the Phantom Menace all the way to like what episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in that order, if you start on the Phantom Menace, they made a movie that has some really fun moments, very boring, that I was like, oh man, I was like, because I played the old Lego Star Wars with episode. I enjoyed playing the Phantom Menace in the old Lego Star Wars, so playing this one and be like seeing that it wasn't as exciting, it's like really like turned me off to like trying to go back to the game. But I had heard that it got better in the other episodes, so I was like, you know what? It's like The Mandalorian's coming soon. Like I'm kind of back in the Star Wars itch. Like I'm kind of saving my Fallen Order replay just to get as we get closer to Survivor. I don't want to kind of play that right now. It's like I have this other Star Wars game I haven't finished. So I'll power through. I've blasted through episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in like 2 days, and I was like, wow. It was like, man, it clicked. It's like it happened. It's like they managed to make Attack of the Clones exciting. I was like, how did that happen? I don't know. But I really enjoyed myself like playing like one of my least favorite Star Wars movies in Lego form. And just some of the jokes that they do is like they make sand jokes. Like the sand jokes they made like slayed me. And it's like I'm starting to see kind of like the ambition that Traveler's Tales was trying to aim with this. And I'll say this. This is the best modern version of Rogue Squadron. Star Wars Rogue Squadron. That old the old arcadey ship flight combat from like back in the N64 and GameCube PC era from like the late 90s, early 2000s. We haven't had like ship Star Wars coming like forever, and even when the Battlefront games introduced it, they didn't feel as good as those ones. And this one is I retained that arcadiness in some of the few levels you play in ships, I was like, oh man, I'm feeling the nostalgia. This is so cool. It's like it, in a way, it reignited my love for Star Wars, because last year it was interesting because when the Obi-Wan show and Andor were coming in, I was hyped out of my mind for Obi-Wan, like absolutely out of my mind, because I was a prequel kid, and I watched that show and I was disappointed I didn't like it more. I enjoyed it, but it was like, this was the show. This is like, if I was gonna be super excited about modern Star Wars, like beyond when I was like excited out of my mind when The Force Awakens was coming in, this was gonna be the moment for me. Like Obi-Wan, like finally seeing Obi-Wan back, like, and seeing like what a story not directed by George Lucas could be, because one of the weaker elements of the prequel trilogy was that George Lucas, being the writer and director without anyone to kind of like oversee and edit his work, made those movies like worse than they should have been. When George Lucas is like the idea man, I kind of wanted to see what Ewan McGregor was gonna be now with like a director like Deborah Chow, that I liked her episodes in Mandalorian, and seeing how that show just didn't get the budget. It was like, it felt like they gave like a shoestring budget, and the focus was like, I don't mind the Reva actor they used for that show, but I was like, you shouldn't have put so much emphasis on her, like when this was the Obi-Wan show. Like that, I think made the whole thing weaker. The last 2 episodes I really liked, but it's like, it made the whole thing seem like a long movie chopped up in 6 episodes. And I'll say this, like I heard so many praises for Andor. I still haven't watched it.
Andor's good. Andor's really good.
And I've heard many times those first 3 episodes didn't grab me, especially because it's more blatant that it's like a movie they chopped up, especially because those episodes just kind of end suddenly with like without it. So I was like, that was rough.
Are you a Rogue One person?
I enjoy Rogue One, but for people that say that Rogue One is like one of the greatest Star Wars movies ever, I like the last 45 minutes. I don't like that entire movie, so that's kind of where I land. That's kind of where I land. But enough people have been telling me that, but I was like, am I disillusioned with Star Wars right now? It's like, not I feel, but I feel like this Lego Star Wars it reminded me. It's like, no, you're a Star Wars fan at heart. Don't like get disheartened in it.
Yeah,
some things don't click. So.
Yeah, I think there's subgenres in Star Wars fandom as well, because I am a Rogue One person. Rogue One is probably my favorite of Disney. Of all the Star Wars movies at this point. But like, I feel like if you're a Rogue One person, then you're an Andor person, and you know, like if you're a Mando person, then you're probably the classic 4, 5, and 6. You know, Star Wars a lot. Yeah. But and then like prequels, you know, you might be all over the place. But like, I think like that is one of those things to where I'm like, if you're not super into Rogue One, you're probably not going to be into Andor. And I'm bringing this back into the Star Wars Skywalker saga here. I liked the game a lot. I love the music. I love like that it feels like a Star Wars movie. It has that comedy and like that feel of the Lego-ness too, though. And
Return of the Jedi, the hot dog gag, like had him in hysterics when like Luke was like grabbing a hot dog and he gives it to the Gamoran guard. And and the sausage is green, and the Gamorreans are like pigs, and then the Gamorreans start like screaming. I completely lost. It's like there's like some like really, really sly humor that they slid in there that just completely slays me. And I've heard that they make such fun of the sequel trilogy that I kind of just want to see how they do that, because obviously we know how the sequels turned out. So
I never played that far into it yet. I think I played the first 3 of the movies, and then you know I got to A New Hope and I kind of petered off. But I want to see. That's one I'm kind of interested in going back to as well.
Yeah, it was like, it felt like I was chatting with Paul, because Paul is also a huge Star Wars fan, and he was like so excited that I turned my opinion around on that. He was like, that game is just like a warm blanket, especially especially if you know like how much you grew up with Star Wars and seeing like and seeing it like that, it just felt nice. And to me, it just reminded me just how much I love Revenge of the Sith. It's like that was my movie, and I think specifically because of its soundtrack. And this time around, they did use the amazing soundtrack from Revenge of the Sith that they didn't use in the old Lego Star Wars, because they didn't when they made that game, that movie and soundtrack were not available yet, so they were not allowed to have early, because Lego Star Wars came out like a month before Revenge of the Sith, so they didn't put that music in. So I think they did in Complete Saga, maybe. like afterwards, when they bundled the original and the sequel Lego Star Wars together back in 2007, I would have to replay it. It's on backwards compatibility on Xbox. So, and I used to love that Lego Star Wars Complete Saga. I played that with my brother and my parents. It's like such a great family game to play. So
It really is. What else have you been playing?
So my big one, Destiny 2 Lightfall. So
How you like it?
So let me preamble this.
Okay, go ahead.
Many listeners from the show know that I'm a big Destiny fan. I've been like a big Destiny fan since it launched back in 2014. I convinced Paul to jump back into Destiny after he played through the majority of Destiny 1 and then he dropped off after the initial year of Destiny 2, so he missed the first 2 expansions, and then he came back for year 4, which was Beyond Light. The first expansion that came out for this batch of consoles. And I have been very vocal of saying that the last 3 years of Destiny 2 have been like some of their stronger, and seeing that after so many years of seeing Bungie kind of like in this topsy-turvy relationship with this game, where at times they seem to nail it and at times they seem to like just completely miss the mark, and then have to like see it rebuild itself. Especially like the launch of Destiny 2 to me is like the lowest point, because they discarded all lessons they learned from Destiny 1 to try to cater to more casual gamers and not take care of like their longer term fans. So it made the game less sticky and made the game less fun. And it made a game that after you were done with the campaign, there was not much to it. After like Destiny 1 was a game that after campaign is when things started to really click. And eventually they turned the ship around, and them splitting from Activision kind of like helped them from a perception perspective that they were out of the way of the money grabbing company was finally gone, and now they can be like the actual they can finally make Destiny what it actually should have been without like money grabbing practices, even though Bungie has been a little money grabby at times. And it's been like, oh, so it wasn't just Activision, huh? Okay, we'll let it slide, because it's like you're putting some really good content. I said I think I mentioned it when I guessed on your show, Sebastion, that I thought the Witch Queen campaign from last year's expansion was legit one of my favorite things that I played last year. That campaign was like a reminder that Bungie at the peak of their level is like unmatched when it comes to FPSs. Is like the Halo original trilogy is like, it's celebrated for a reason. They're the ones that used to do it, even though the same people that worked on Halo back then are no longer working, are not one of the people currently on Destiny, because obviously they brought in more people and all that. But there's a DNA to that studio that follows them from Halo that I felt the Witch Queen campaign was like a good summation of them finally figuring it out Destiny and not making it like its best form, and showing like a nice peek into like what the next level of Destiny could be. So Destiny 2 Lightfall was pitched as kind of like the beginning of the end of like what they deemed the Light and Darkness saga. So if you go back all the way to original Destiny 1, you always hear about this mentions about the darkness, your guardians using the light, and now it's like the darkness is here. It's the main villain, the Witness, which is like this really cool ethereal villain that is like, he shades his like, you only see like the upper side of his face. He looks like a baby. It has like this shadow, just like you probably saw a few glimpses of him in the State of Play trailer. Saw like the Witness. That was like the villain reveal from like the Witch Queen. Is like, no, this is the Thanos. Let's say this is the Thanos. Okay. This is the guy that is the darkness personified. And now they're here. Like the stage has been set for like now the beginning of the end. Like all the stakes are here, and they fumbled.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes. So let me say it like this with Lightfall. I'm gonna get the good out of the way first. Destiny at its core, it's a really incredible game to play. The mechanics are unmatched. The legendary difficulty they introduced last year with Witch Queen, they brought it into Lightfall. For the most part, like the campaign, I had a blast playing it, because at that difficulty, the combat is just unlocked. You have to like think on your feet, try to use like all the million different permutations of the combat to succeed. And some of the level design, even though may not have been as fresh as they were in Witch Queen, sometimes it felt like a repeat. It's like, and from a gameplay perspective, I had a lot of fun. And the new super, which is called Strand, is like this green power that allows you to kind of grapple and move around real quick and kind of like tangle enemies and add a new sense of mobility. It's very fun to use, especially when they let you use in the campaign before it unlocks as your actual subclass. when it comes to story, I don't know what the hell happened. This is like, you probably have heard the memes that back in year 1 of Destiny, no one knew what the hell the story was. It had a story that had literal dialogue like, I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain.
Yeah.
It feels like we've gone back to that level of vagueness at the absolute worst time possible.
Oh, no.
Just let me, like, because I mentioned MCU, like, imagine if Infinity War happened and never we knew what the Infinity Stones were. If we never knew what the Infinity Gauntlet was, and we didn't know the importance of preventing all those Infinity Gauntlets getting put together in that gauntlet for like the snap to happen. Imagine if that movie happened without you ever knowing that why it was important that they had to like make sure that those Infinity Stones didn't get captured by Thanos for that snap to happen. Imagine that without that explanation, the snap still happened.
Oh no!
And then it's like, and you're like, and then they think that it's like they're presenting it as this grand thing, but it's like you didn't explain like why it's important, like this MacGuffin that we're pursuing in this expansion to like what ends up happening. It's like this, like for Destiny fans, it's like there's so many mentions about this thing called the Veil, that the Witness has found the Veil, and you're pursuing Callus, which is like the big emperor of the Cabal, or like the Cabal. Is like the big villain of this expansion, and he's like went to Neptune, to this hidden city of New Muna, which is like the cyberpunkian city that looks really nice because I like synthwave aesthetics, the purples, the greens, and all that. That I dig that aesthetic a lot. So visually speaking, this expansion really spoke to me from like a visual aesthetic level. But they're mentioning about like Kalos is gonna get into the Veil. We have to protect the Veil. They're getting close to the Veil. The Witness can't have the Veil. It's gonna be the end of all. And I'm like, what is the Veil? Why is it important? Why is it like at no point in the campaign they tell you why the Veil is important? And then the whole thing ends in a way that seems like it's like game changing, but because we don't know what the Veil is, you end up with an ending for the campaign of this expansion that to me gives me echoes of the original ending for Mass Effect 3. The Star Child crucible thing that didn't really explain like why things ended up happening. It's like, it's a vague to the extreme, and that vagueness, while it was cool in a way for like lore reasons back when this game was starting, that's not what you pull off when you're at the end of your saga. Like supposedly the Light and Darkness saga ends next year with the final shape, and what's seeming very clear is because back when in 2020 when they announced like the roadmap for Destiny, when they revealed Beyond Light, they did what they didn't do before. They actually announced it next to expansions before it. So when Beyond Light was announced, we learned of the Witch Queen and Lightfall, and Lightfall had a different aesthetic. Like if you look up you Google what the original reveal for Lightfall looked like, it was like a more darker, somber thing that then got changed into the more synthwave Thor Ragnarok in Sakar style thing that they they ended up going with when they revealed it last year. And around the Witch Queen time, they mentioned that they added an extra expansion, the Final Shape, and how that was gonna finally like round up the Light and Darkness saga. What this feels to me is like originally Lightfall was gonna be the end, but they chopped it off. And they added and they added basically the second half of the story. They pushed it until the Final Shape, leaving this campaign in a really awkward position where it's like the most plot you get is like what you see in the trailer we saw at the State of Play. That's the beginning.
No.
That's the beginning. Like seeing that whole cutscene that we saw like in the launch trailer, like uncut. That is like the most that happens. And then when you go over to the city of New Muna, it feels like filler. Like it feels more like a Strand tutorial. Like you're in that city to kind of learn the power with and half of that campaign is you like learning the power and learning different things about the power, even though you're not wielding the power all the time. It just kind of comes and goes throughout the campaign, and then like this would have worked if the campaign had been longer, if you had more time, because there's like 2 extra cutscenes where you see Emperor Callus talking with the Witness. You learn a little bit more about the Witness. The Witness as a concept, as a villain, is so cool for this universe. I wish we had more. Or I wish that had they actually like used their time better when they showed us cutscenes with them, they would bother to explain why they want this veil. instead of just talking in like in like the most basic sense. It just like ends up being nonsense, and because it's nonsensical right now, it just now has left like this campaign feeling like one of the worst things they've done, and that sucks. Because
that was the gameplay.
Amazing. That's the problem. It's like this is the most torn I've felt in like playing something, because when I compare it to like the Witch Queen, like superficially, I feel that they're very similar. I feel like the Witch Queen gameplay campaign design was a little bit more even. This one on Legendary was like easier in spots, but then brutally difficult in like specific moments that didn't feel balanced. I spent 4 hours on the final boss in the Legendary difficult, just to kind of give you an idea that it felt like some things were not as fine tuned, but the aesthetic alone was like propelling me. Like, is it because it was just like I just enjoy looking at it, because when you look at what the Witch Queen was, it was like a lot of white grays, swampy greens, that at a certain point looked a little monotone. It was cool at first because it had like a Minas Morgul and Minas Tirith kind of like came together and had a
filter.
Baby. It felt like that, like looking at the throne world. But then like when you were done with the campaign and exploring more, it's like, this doesn't look as cool. And then like the city of New Muna looks cooler, even though it has the same problem that it's like it's a very sparse city with little to do. Right now, Destiny has a thing that over time they unlock things because it's an ongoing live service game. But never have I felt the bigger split of how much fun I had playing it, with just how dumbstruck I was that at this point in time, after 3 years where I was telling, they've gotten so much better at storytelling. The seasonal stories they're telling is like, they're shockingly good. They're finally, it's like this Destiny no longer feels like this very disparate story, like with different elements that don't seem like they work together in tandem. And now they slowly started reeling those in into making it feel like a cohesive whole. They finally got their writing woes together. This is like the perfect time for them to strike hard. Like now that it's like the end. This is like the beginning of the end. This is the Infinity War. Next year is your end game. And that's why like, you cannot fumble like the first part of your 2-part. You just can't. And they release like, because they do a Thursday blog called This Week at Bungie, where they mentioned that if you have any questions regarding the end of the campaign, don't worry. The next year of storytelling for the seasons, they're gonna like untangle everything. They're gonna answer any questions as we lead into the final shape. And I'm like, okay, so you just sacrifice your campaign up in the altar for like a year-long story, when last year when you did Witch Queen, you managed to tell a beginning, middle, and end with a clear villain with amazing motivations, voiced by Deborah Wilson, the amazing Deborah Wilson, and shattering the perceptions of the lore at the same time, and ending in a way that was satisfying and tantalizing. Instead, now you're ending in a WTF moment. And that to me is like, if last year I could recommend people be like, even if you have dropped off of Destiny, come back, just buy the Witch Queen, play the Witch Queen. The Witch Queen campaign is awesome. I can't say the same about Lightfall. Like as a campaign, like I cannot recommend that. And even though some of the design tenets that made that campaign last year are still there, the fumbling of the story is almost indefensible. Like right now, the Destiny community is in revolt in a way. Like if you go to Steam, into the Steam reviews, like the fan reviews, like Lightfall isn't mostly negative. And
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like I saw it today. I was like, God damn! It's like a lot of people are like really not happy with this, and that's the thing. Like, those are reviews that you should be reserved for games that are fundamentally broken. All that. This game is not broken. It's like this. In fact, I will say this: like Lightfall brings in the best quality of life that I've seen of Destiny 2 in so long, streamlining the armor, the mod system to be able to like create builds. Even though right now it feels a little limited because a lot of mods have been removed that made Destiny such a crazy mod build game for people that love going into that. But and I like the simplicity. It feels like it feels like it's easier to wrap around your head about the systems. The level of difficulty has been adjusted in a way that like in the rest of the game doesn't feel like it's being trivialized by your new power. That was a problem last year with Witch Queen, that the Witch Queen was so good that the rest of the game wasn't as good because they gave you new powers and those powers were just destroying all their content. It feels like they have tuned everything in to not feel to feel like it's matching your power level in a way that's not unfair, and it's fun to like overcome challenges. And the quality of life, the gameplay, I think is like in a really good state. It sucks about the story, especially because if you've been one that has been championing it for a while, it's like I don't know what happened. And the raid is coming next Friday. Usually, like, there's kernels and Finfo that are there, and also I'll say the post game quests that you do, because when you finish the campaign, there's like the end game is a bunch of quests that you do afterwards. They're fleshing out a lot that wasn't there, and I'm like, why didn't you put this in the campaign? Like, why?
So what class and how did you play it?
I played as a warlock.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, warlock is always my first one because I like their self healing. I feel like I like experiencing the content first with warlock and then running with the other two, knowing what's coming and knowing what to anticipate. I feel like warlock helps me play it better solo in my style that I play. And the new power also was like a very like head scratching moment when it comes to this expansion, like when you're using the power when they gave it to you in the campaign, because Destiny has like the different subclasses that you can select. It has Void, Solar, Arc, and they added Stasis 3 years ago, and they were gonna add Strain for this. In the campaign, you like absorb a thing to get Strand for like a good amount of time, and it feels like it has most of the things unlocked. It feels nice to do that. If you play Halo Infinite, they have a similar thing of like when you're grappling hook someone and going into an enemy and then do like a super punch. They have that here, and because this is more magical power, so when you do that super punch, it like creates this like tendrils of reality that then starts wrapping on enemies, and then they explode. It's like, it feels so nice to be able to like just always kind of Superman punch everyone with the grappling abilities. But then when you unlock them in the main, like outside the campaign, for you to like finally use it as a subclass for the rest of the game, the cooldowns are atrocious. It's like
they take forever.
It's like for you to do the grappling hook, like you use it, and if you don't use it in some specific points that are like randomly put in the map, you have to wait like 1 minute and 30 seconds to be able to use it again.
You are kidding.
And in the campaign, it was 5 seconds. That was the cooldown there. So going from 5-second cooldowns to 1 minute and 30, awful. Especially like it makes you seem that the power fantasy of using that super is to be like in the air all the time, pulling yourself in enemies and not using that doesn't translate to proper gameplay unless like you have weapons that can recharge your grenade quicker, because the grappling hook takes the place of your grenade. Spec yourself so that your power melees, which is the one that, like, for example, the warlock has like this magic thing where it starts shooting with the hands and throwing things like it's like freaking shurikens. That is like really nice, and those things are really strong, and that's why you start tangling your enemies in a way that's so satisfying. If you don't have the proper tools to be able to like spec up to lower those cooldowns, it just feels miserable. And I hope they tuned it up, because it's like, it's funny. It's like with Paul, we always mention blue balls here. It feels like blue balls. They gave you like the excitement in the campaign to then giving you like something so neutered. Like now that you have like the subclass unlocked for you to like start customizing it and everything, and it's like the impressions it's creating is not the strongest. Today they announced that they're gonna let you unlock every upgrade aspect, because they were time gating some upgrades for like the next week, but they knew that sentiment was not the best. So today they were like, later today we're putting a patch, everything will be unlocked, go crazy, because
that's crazy.
Yeah, because they know they didn't feel good. And the thing is that when they released the previous subclass, which was called Stasis, which was the ice one, that one launch busted. It was so strong that it destroyed many areas of the game. Like you couldn't play PvP. Like the actual multiplayer got destroyed because of that subclass, because it was like everyone was getting frozen, like gunplay was like non-existent with like how powerful that subclass is, that it feels like they designed this like lower, being like, we're gonna like undertune this as much, and then we're gonna slowly climb up, because they spent a year after Stacy's launch kind of like trying to bring it down in a way that still made it feel powerful without it like without ruining the rest of the game. So now they're taking the opposite approach, and it's just all these little things that I'm like, it makes me not love this expansion like I thought it would.
So let me ask you a question. How long did it take you to complete the campaign? About how many hours?
Oh, okay. Because I was playing on Legendary, probably 8 or 9.
Okay, so if you felt like if you were playing on like normal difficulty, it'd probably take you, what, 6?
Yeah,
maybe?
5 or 6. Yeah.
Okay.
And without like and Legendary is like obviously like the difficulty of the encounters can add to that. But it just makes it more fun, because in normal you feel like you steamroll. I'm actually gonna because I have my brother's account. I'm gonna try. I want to see, especially because I'm reviewing this for Season Gaming. I want to see like what the new player experience is like, just to see how they handle it, because they added a new thing called Guardian ranks, also another quality of life thing where they're kind of giving you like a checklist of achievements that helps guide you through the game and explain to you the different systems of the game. And because onboarding has been a nightmare ever since like Destiny 2 became free to play, like especially when they removed the first 2 years of Destiny, is like the main campaign that launched in 2017 gone, absolutely.
Oh wow.
So, and there's no like sign that they may bring it back. They already mentioned that they're never gonna remove content ever again that's paid expansions, like it was with base Destiny 2 and the Forsaken expansion, where they only got it half of it. But onboarding has been like, if you haven't played for a while, you better have a friend. That's how it used to be. And I want to see how the new Guardian ranks works as if someone is curious. And that's the thing, like Lightfall is probably the most popular expansion Destiny has had. Like concurrent wise, is what it broke the record on Steam. There was legit hype for this. It helps. Like I feel like they understood that a lot of people like synthwave, so I think that's what probably brought a lot of people in. And it just sucks that it felt like they were like really hyping this up as we got our shit together. Basically, now we're gonna give you the best. We said the best days of Destiny are ahead of it. That's what they promoted like in the lead up to Witch Queen. And then when you play Witch Queen, are like, okay, there's still a few things that are still not quite there yet, but I see what you mean. That's what the game director said, is like, I see you where the best days are coming because you're really improving things. This is not living up to that. Like,
so let me ask you a series of questions that I think people would really want to know about this expansion. So one, do you feel like this is a good entry point for newcomers to play Destiny?
Was Infinity War a good entry point for new people?
No, absolutely not.
There's your
answer. I gotcha. All right, next question then. So do you feel like this, you talked about how good the gameplay is and all that. Do you feel like the new mechanics made the wait for the new expansion worth it?
I would say yes.
Okay.
In a way, especially because I know that they're going to keep adding to it. And the thing is that Destiny to me has always been gameplay over story in a way. It's just that the story had gotten so much better, and finally feeling like it was going to stand toe to toe with how good it felt to play as a more complete thing, instead, because Destiny has always been the game of caveats. It feels so nice to play. That's anyone that plays Destiny knows that. It always just had the other thing. It's like, why isn't this better? Why are they designing this? It's like there's always like, Destiny is the best game ever, but that's always been that. And I feel like, at least from a mechanics perspective, I really like it. I really like it. And if people really don't give a rat's ass about the story, maybe they can find some fun here. Because like I mentioned, it's like some of the things that I loved about the Witch Queen campaign were still present here from a gameplay perspective. So
okay, that makes sense. So so after you've completed the campaign, did you feel compelled to, do a whole lot more into the game?
Yes, but that's always inherent for Destiny, because they have for many years has always been about like the post camp. Destiny has never been a campaign game. That's always been the thing. In fact, like Witch Queen was their first true attempt in a while to be like, you know what? We always save our best thing for after the campaign. Our campaigns are usually whatever. Let's make a better game, a better first impression to complement all the content that we're giving you after. So
that makes sense. So my next question then, how's the loot in this expansion? So
right now it's like a TBD. Like I haven't unlocked many of the new ones because they seem like they're hidden on higher ranks that you have to unlock from like different vendors and the different activities that you make. So a few of the loot that I try, especially the ones that are like using the new subclass, are kind of fun. Especially like being able to have weapons that can't tangle enemies and synergize, and synergize with your power. I'm like, ooh, I can see this. And yesterday I took the subclass to like the lower end content. I was like, oh, I think this is kind of busted, like in a good way. This is actually pretty fun, seeing like all the green explosions of like a batch of enemies just get destroyed by a grenade launcher from like exotic auto rifle, that when I shoot the grenade, it creates like a tangle thing that then if I shoot it, it shoots different threads of green that then follow enemies like little worms that then jump on them like a freaking alien and then untangles them. It's like when it comes to like power fantasy, like there's just something very unique about Destiny that's always so fun. That is still so present here. It's just that I feel like more than anything, this is when the story needed to be good. Like, especially after seeing how good it was last year. It's like, if you always, like, if you're gonna build up to the end of something, you cannot fumble. Like, no. Halfway through, you can't. And when even your lore masters, a YouTuber named My Name is Bive, is this disappointed with like how the story went, you know something wrong went. And I really hope that eventually they address, like, because I tell you, it's like when I saw, because I heard that Reddit was on fire from like Paul Tassi, I was like, when is it not on fire when it comes to Destiny? It's like, whatever. It's like, is the Squidward SpongeBob beam? I'm getting a tan. Put the
pickles on. Yeah.
And then just put the glass on and ignore. Like, that's always been me, because Destiny, the problem with live service games that you're always going to hear a lot of people complaining about it. That's why I always say people don't try to do live services, because you have to have the strength to be able to like deal with fan bases that are always so antsy about them. They can never be like happy all the time. So I was like, oh, whatever. But then when I finished it and started marinating about it, I was like, let me go check the Reddit. Well, let me see what they're saying. And I'm like, damn it. I was like, damn it. I agree with this. I agree with this. I agree with this. So it's like, that was the worst feeling. I was like, I don't want to be a Redditor. I don't want to agree with that. Like, I'm a more, I always like to see the good in things. It's just this time that I'm like, God, it's like, I was like singing all the praises, Bungie. Why do you come and let me down in that specific aspect right now? It's like,
so let me ask you, like, I know you're still compiling your thoughts for the review process. Based on what you've played so far, do you feel like this is a hard recommendation or easy recommendation to people?
Campaign. If people just want a campaign to play, hard recommendation.
Okay. Do you feel like this is a good single player experience? Or do you feel like this is a better multiplayer experience?
And the thing is that the thing I like about Destiny is that I like their PvE content a lot. Even when you're playing with people or by yourself, it's like, I just love the people versus enemies combat that they usually do. Even though this game has multiplayer like PvP, I don't play that. I'm not that kind of person, and their PvP is not that good anyway, because it's so unbalanced because of their million different permutations. And a really great multiplayer has to be like, at least has a semblance of balance to feel competitive, and this game is not competitive at all. So I think it's still a fun game to play, especially with friends. And the post-campaign stuff that I played, I've liked. There has been some like interesting story threads. Again, I was like, why wasn't this in the campaign? Like, why were not this like good stuff? Like, you learned the good lesson last year of like putting your best stuff at the front.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, why do you backload it this time? It's like, where did that break down? It was like, was someone that was whoever making the Lightfall campaign not get the memo when they were making the Witch Queen campaign? Because it seems weird that to think that this may have been done by the same people that made last year's campaign, though. Considering like the realities of game development, it probably was made by a different team. So yeah.
So let me ask you then. So you've been playing this game for about 8 hours. Do you feel?
That's the thing. I play like 15.
Okay, so about 15 hours. So in that 15 hours, did you ever feel the pull to want to play something else, or did you always feel like I can't help it, I love this world?
And that's my thing. Like, I can complain, like, all the valid complaints that I've loved that Destiny in this podcast are all valid. I still love it. That's the thing. I love Destiny as a game so much that getting to play more content in this game, new content, feels nice. Last year was a breaking point for me that they reused a lot of old content a little too many times, that I was like, after like 5 years with this game, or 8 years I play in this franchise, I've kind of seen it all. So I can't quite like play this as a hobby like I used to. It was like 2019 is the year that I played so much Destiny. I feel like I played 1,000 hours just in that year alone. That it feels nice to me to be playing new stuff when it comes to Destiny, and I know that new stuff are gonna be like unlocking. I think that's some of your mileage may vary into what you think as Destiny as a concept. How I would recommend it is, if you haven't played Witch Queen campaign, play that first. If that experience leaves you wanting more, then play Lightfall. because it's gonna give you that gameplay. Just beware that the story may leave you very confused and bewildered. So
I can understand that notion.
That's kind of how it feels. And my thing is that there is a potential that as an expansion overall, like beyond its campaign, this thing could pull through. Because usually when the raid comes in and then someone completes the raid, the entire world changes. It's something really cool that they do to as like ongoing storytelling. And some of the kernels of ongoing storytelling they're going to be doing with the seasonal content that launch at the same time are very tantalizing. I was like, okay, so they might be telling a really good story in the seasonal stuff this time. Why was the campaign not this? So, it's kind of like seeing all the good stuff that I'm seeing outside of the campaign. And I'm like, why wasn't that here? So
Bungie's been doing this for a very long time.
9 years.
9 years.
For Destiny.
Do you want more Destiny, or do you feel like you would like this story to kind of wrap up so that Bungie can maybe create something different?
The thing is that we already know that they're gonna make something different because they've been hiring. The thing is that I don't mind Destiny continuing because, like, City Skylines, it's your like comfort game. Destiny is my comfort game because it's just so good to play.
That makes complete sense. Yeah.
I'm like, what I want is for them to show me what they showed me on Witch Queen. Show me is like, last year was a statement that you got a handle on this. Last year was at the time where you're like, no, it was like, we know what makes Destiny work. Here's a teaser of like what we think are gonna be Destiny's best years ever. Lightfall feels like a betrayal of like that promise in a way. So and that's just so unfortunate because I was riding high going into it. I was like, the day before I was like antsy because they usually shut the game off like the day before because it's like they're working the back end, they're getting ready to push the new content now. So it's like they uploaded the new title screen, the new soundtrack. I was hearing the soundtrack as I was ranking the expansions because, oh, by the way, my Destiny rankings from both the vanilla games and all its expansions is live over at seasongaming.com and plug. So yeah, as I was writing that, I had like the title screen open and I was hearing the soundtrack. I was like, God, I can't wait. I said, yes, finally new content. I can't wait to like get more of this. And it gave me halfway part of what I wanted, and while really like bungling the other part that really drags it down more than it absolutely needs to. Any other year, the kind of story they told here wouldn't have bothered me. It's just its placement as the beginning of the end. That I was like, this is the worst time where you're in the Super Bowl, you're against your hard like your bitter rival, you're like tied in, you got the momentum because you were like coming back from like you were doing the comeback, you're both at 30 points. Here's your runner. You're heading for the touchdown. It's gonna be the winning, and then you fumble, and then you hit the butt fumble. That's kind of that's kind of how it feels. Like you fumble at like the worst possible time, like in this part. So
do you think this is gonna be the best shooter of 2023?
It depends on what else is gonna be out. Like it's so funny. It's like both Atomic Heart was like the first shooter of this year, and now this. I'm like, what else is there for shooters? Because so far at least it's like. Not a great year. Yeah, not a great year so far. And that sucks. I hate that I'm here. It's like, I was like looking, especially when I see the Betrayal Online, I was like, just what Destiny needed. Their own Last Jedi. This is exactly what they needed.
You're thinking this is like the equivalent of The Last Jedi? Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's in the way that I'm seeing fan revolt over it. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, this is the Biff, the Biff Tannen Back to the Future meme. This seems very familiar to me right now. I was in the trenches. I remember the betrayal over The Last Jedi. But I'll say this, like, what was interesting about me around then was like, when I went to see that movie and I got out of that movie, I was mesmerized. I was like, that was great. I love that. Then I go online, it's the SpongeBob on fire meme or the Donald Glover in Community Remedial Cast Theory episode coming back with the pizzas and seafood. Like, yeah, the internet was aflame. I was like, what the hell happened? It's like, did people really not like that? And now I'm like in this, and now I'm in the side where I'm like, yeah, I see where the complaints are coming. I still had fun, and that's why it says like this is the most torn I've been with a game in a while, because the amount of fun I had playing it is in equal amounts to the amount of frustration I had with like how that story went. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy, and I hate that kind of like equal like polar opposite dichotomies, because games are meant to be played in a way. So,
yeah, but we just talked about Atomic Heart. Not everything is not gonna be the 10 out of 10s of the world. It's not gonna just blow everything else away.
And the thing is that I'm not one that wants everything to be a 10 out of 10. Like I'm not one that I love Thor Ragnarok. I mean, I love God of War Ragnarok. Like you and I agreed that was like our favorite game from last year. To me, like I'm not judging every game that comes out on that. Because if everything is a God of War Ragnarok, then what's special then? It's like usually you need those things to kind of like come once in a while and learn how to like enjoy the things that are kind of like a tier below it. That's usually kind of like the mantra that and I'm even one that can have fun with your 6 out of 10s. I played so many 6 out of 10s in 2022 that I was like, yeah, I still had fun. Like to me, like the best 6 out of 10 game I played last year was Valkyrie Elysium. I had a blast. Yeah. That game was a 6 out of 10 game. As you could possibly think. So,
I mean, you're not alone with the reviews. Games Radar right now has the title, "There is no redeeming this campaign." The Game Rant right underneath it says mostly negative review average on Steam. Kotaku right now about Destiny Lightfall.
That doesn't make a great first impression. I think is the Kotaku article.
Yeah. Not what I was expecting. Slug, like everything is screaming a little bit on the negative side of this game, but a lot of people are having fun with it. So I think this is, is it 7 out of 10 territory? Is it 6 out of 10 territory?
I'll say I feel like the campaign is 6 out of 10 territory. The overall experience with the quality of life and how fun it is propels it to me into 7 out of 10 territory. Witch Queen was 9 out of 10 territory, so you know where the bar was, where the bar was. So, and that's what's disappointing. But usually, like it comes with Destiny, it's like it's not defined by just the one experience. To me, it's just seeing what they achieved last year and seeing that they attempt to do that again this year and not hit that. That's what makes it sad. But
let me ask you one last major question about this. So when you're playing Destiny going forward, especially Lightfall, are you going to be playing as a single player or a multiplayer gamer?
It varies, because some of the later content is one that you have to have that you do it with friends or people that you matchmake with. Like the big thing for the raid, that's a 6-man activity. I have a clan that we're already getting ready for the day one raid experience. Is like many of these experiences become like communal experiences, and me that I'm the head mod of a clan, like and moderate, and like I have my admins beneath me, and all of that. The experience for Destiny turns to that afterwards, like after like a couple of weeks, and that's just kind of like the way it goes. As just the single player stuff. That's why, like, to me, like them nailing the campaign last year like they did was so good, because it felt like finally, like after seeing that Destiny had become impenetrable for like new people and feeling like a lot of the really good content would require friends to play. It was good seeing high tier quality content that was just for a single player like perspective. That's kind of why I told you, is like, if you're interested, like play the Witch Queen, absolutely play it. If you like the gameplay of that and you want to experience something, if it's a worse story, Lightfall is kind of that also. So
do you think this is a better single player campaign shooter right now, Lightfall, just Lightfall, than Halo Infinite? Hey man, this is what I'm here for. I ask the hard questions here, and then I bring the fire. I bring the heat with these questions.
Whew.
I brought all the spice. This is mango habanero heat, man.
Yes. Well, I'll say this.
Okay.
Halo Infinite was very fun to play. They nailed the mechanics of that thing. The campaign, in hindsight, was pretty boring because it had little diversity. I don't think open world was like the right way for them to go for that game. The scripted moments of Halo Infinite were really fun. Ironically, also that game, I think, fumbled the story really severely, because it was just a throat-clearing prologue of we know Halo 5 story sucked. We heard it many times. We're spiritually rebooting it, like telling a story that's like after a hypothetical Halo 6 that didn't happen. We're just gonna tell you the things in flashbacks to kind of just like grab the grab the whatchamacallit,
The gravity hammer.
Yeah, they grab the gravity hammer. They just slam it and send it down and send it down to space and pretend that didn't happen, so we can get a fresh start. Even though we have like a filler villain, even though we're teasing great things to come that eventually didn't happen. I would say that I felt more optimistic about where Halo was headed after I finished Infinite than I did after seeing where the story of Lightfall went. But I had more fun playing Lightfall because it's more like the way the campaigns are structured. They're like, there's 8 missions. There's like the 8 missions. They're like fairly linear. They're like scripted in a way that I really like. When the kind of author experience is better than like the more freewheeling nature of Halo Infinite's campaign. So Halo Infinite had like really great multiplayer, so that helped propel that package overall. But at least from like story, I personally enjoyed Lightfall a little better from a gameplay perspective.
I got you. I was, when I was listening to your review, and you were giving a lot of good points there. It reminded me of how a lot about Halo Infinite,
right? Yeah. Right now you put it on, I was like, crap, yes, because it's like, what the hell was the story of Halo Infinite?
Exactly. So now I'm like, it seems like it's Bungie and 343 having the same problems with their single player campaigns. It's like they can produce good gameplay, but where is the story here? I'm like, where's the writers? Do they just not hire writers anymore?
Yeah, and that's what makes it interesting, because the Witch Queen campaign happened after Halo Infinite last time, and the Witch Queen campaign blew Halo Infinite out of the water as a campaign. So with Destiny, it's even more like egregious in a way, because it's like
we have the potential
because we know what you did just a year ago. Literally around a year ago, Paul and I were like gushing over the moon just how good the campaign was. So so that's why like Lightfall is just really like breaking my mind in like how they could have fumbled a very important part this late, but they're still nailing the fundamentals. They mechanically wise is just as fun as Witch Queen to me. I feel like that still remain strong, and that to me this still makes it a good game. Like it still like maintains Destiny as a really good shooter for me. It's just now as a specific piece of content, it's just sad because I hate when like climactic parts of a story fumble when they do. It's like this is not the moment for you to like fumble. So
I understand. The way you're describing Destiny right now is how I would feel if One Piece just fumbled, like One Piece anime just fumbled this late into the game. I'm like, you've been perfect so far, and then and then now all of a sudden you have like hiccups and plot holes, or you didn't like focus on the plot at all. That's kind of how I feel about that. I get it.
Just another analogy. You watched the Flash TV show, right? The CW Flash TV show.
Yeah, I've been in and out. Let's put it like that.
Do you remember the Zoom era, season 2?
Yeah,
Zoom, Tony Todd, like Bill and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a very specific episode in season 2 where they revealed who Zoom is. Like you see him like as a child and all of that, and it was gonna finally answer all the questions about that villain.
So disappointing.
Everything like that was a climactic episode that they fumbled, and then it made the final episodes of that season kind of like just limp to the finish, because in the very important time where everything was gonna come together, kind of like in the first season when the Reverse Flash, we got all its origins, like how he got the face of the Harrison Wells, and all of that, and it made that it elevated that season. Like in this, when they tried to do that with Zoom, they fumble, and then it ruined the rest of that season. This is how that feels like. This is like Lightfall feels like that Zoom episode that was gonna be like the thing they were gonna reveal everything. Instead of reveal anything, they confused me even more. And now it's like it puts me in a really strange position of like, what do I believe they will be able to like stick the landing with the ending of this Light and Darkness saga within a year from now? So that's why it's very important. It's like if you're gonna do like parts of your story that hinge like heavily on you nailing it, you gotta nail it. If not, this is what happens. So as of right, like if I were to just review this campaign, I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, not bad.
Like,
not bad.
To me personally, that's where it would land. It's okay for like Destiny campaign standards. As an overall expansion, because of the things that I'm seeing and with the potential of the rain coming, I think I might land at a 7 out of 10. It's still, that makes me sad. I wanted this to be like another 8 or 9.
Yeah,
So
I got you. My last question then. There's a little game coming out by the name of Crime Boss Rocky City coming out later this month.
is that the Michael Madsen?
Yeah, with everybody in it.
With all the actors, huh?
Yeah, in Florida. If
Huh?
that game has a single player campaign and that campaign is better than Destiny Lightfall, how crushed are you gonna be?
It will be like a massive crushing disappointment. Like it would. Like it really will. Because I don't like, because I was telling Paul, is like right now he's like, because he's traveling, he's like completely missing all the discourse. I hate being like, for a game that I love like this, that I've seen it grow so much better over many years, and even have stood by it even in its lowest parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crushing seeing it like this at such an important time for a franchise.
Oh, that sucks, man. I hate it.
Yeah, when all the eyes are on it. When I saw the Steam concurrence, I was like, oh, they're like, they're like hitting above the peak concurrence they got back in Shadowkeep when they launched on Steam. That's when you know there were a lot of people were like, oh, now we're like paying attention now. And for this to be that, I was like, oh man. But yeah,
that sucks, man. I feel sorry for y'all Destiny fans, because like, you know, I felt like this is the chosen one. This was Anakin in the franchise. This was advertised as, you were the chosen one. You were supposed to bring peace to the Force, not chaos. And it just didn't turn out that way. I'm so sorry.
Exactly, literally how it feels. But again, like I mentioned, expansions are not just a campaign. So that being like the most like raw like experience, but because they made a big deal of finally making campaigns a big deal again last year. I just have to call it like I see it. It's like they really like fumbled it this time after we saw like how great last year's was. But there's potential. There is like the rest of the expansion. The raid might be great. Like, raids tend to elevate expansions. So maybe we'll talk about this like within a week. Well, a week and a half, because it's like not this Friday, next Friday when the raid launches.
Yeah, for sure.
I might be singing a different tune about like the overall thing, because again, it's like the quality of life that they added with this expansion. I'm like, yes. It's like, you're like cleaning up all the tiny little things that I thought needed to be cleaned up about the complexity of this game. So
yeah, well, hopefully it gets better. Yeah, it can only go up from here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, once again, the topsy-turvy. This is why developers, this is what happens when you do live service content that has to deliver year in and year out. 1 year, we're going to be singing your praises. The next year, we're going to take you to the street and beat you to a pulp. So, because like, it's why like an annualized release like that, you never know. Maybe every other year this is gonna be the thing. It's like, this year was great, next year not so much. Then the next year will be great. It's just how I feel sometimes. So,
I mean, this is how a lot of people feel about Assassin's Creed, like the IP as a whole. So,
yeah, until they eventually got a little consistency after the first break. I thought like. From Origins to Odyssey, it was like, oh, 2 back-to-back ones, and then Valhalla, you have people that love it, there are people that don't. So it just depends. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely be playing more Destiny 2. Like, I need to finish all the quests. I have to level up to be raid ready. I will participate in the raid race, which is when everyone's like trying to get the first completion. Obviously, I'm not gonna end number 1, because there's like the top tier streamers that usually do that. But it's fun being part of like being in that communal where everyone's like learning together. It's like raids are like a Zelda dungeon. You don't know what to do. You get there, you have to figure it out with your team, and you advance. And it's about who like finishes it first. Those are some of Destiny's best moments, and I feel like that will remain true here with Lightfall. It's just unfortunate that their first impressions matter. Now their first impression, you're seeing now with the headlines.
Okay,
not a good one. So let's take a little break before we come back for the news. And we're back from the little tiny break. So, Sebastion, press X.
Whoop, whoop.
For the news. Alright, Sebastion, finally we get you in again for the news section of the X button, because usually we only do like topical ones. This almost became a Destiny 2 topical one, but definitely want to cover a few of the news here, including like a big one from this week that dropped randomly at like very late at night or early morning, I don't remember. So story number 1 over from Game Informer by Wesley LeBlanc. Elden Ring expansion Shadow of the Earth Tree revealed. Just a few days after the 1-year anniversary of Elden Ring's release, developer From Software has revealed that an expansion for the game is currently in development. Revealed by the official Elden Ring Twitter account, this expansion is called Shadow of the Erdtree. Not much is known about the expansion, but those familiar with the game's lore, especially those that have completed the game, might be able to piece together what this new adventure will consist of. Alongside the news, From Software has released what appears to be a piece of concept art for the expansion, which, by the way, that concept art looks so cool. There's like Elden Ring art is like top tier, just like screenshot wise. Maybe not technically proficient as a game, but from an art design perspective, I feel Elden Ring is just unmatched.
I can understand that. I can definitely feel that. It does have its own unique art style. It's almost like a beautiful grittiness to it that people just seem to love.
Yeah, and not only just beautiful grittiness, because how far do you get into Elden Ring?
Not super far. The crazy thing is I put probably 30 to 40 hours into it. Did not beat it at all. Didn't even get close to beating it. I did not figure out what to do after I beat Margaret the Fell the first time. Like I didn't know where to go, what to do. I followed the little tree like markers in the sky. I just kept getting lost and I just got lost in the land between, basically.
Yeah. so yeah, it's like the beauty of that game is like how little it handholds you, unless you like really understand like its intricacies, like in the places where you rest. For like the checkpoints, if you go into the map, you see that the yellow circle sometimes will have like a line that kind of points into the direction to go. So, but you wouldn't know if you're not paying. Yeah, you wouldn't know if you're not paying attention, or you're seeing like when you're like in those checkpoints. Sometimes you see kind of like the little light that's like sort of like moving a specific area. Yeah, but it's like very subtle. You have to kind of pay attention to that. But the game is like so carefree about what you do with it but still maintaining a level of kind of like narrative, like, because that game is like doesn't quite have a narrative, but it has like at least it keeps the point clear of what it is about becoming an Elden Lord, that it just feels like it helps be malleable in a way that's unlike like something like Breath of the Wild, that is as simple as just reach Ganon, fight Ganon. What else? So
we don't know. It does have a lot of Breath of the Wildness into it, to where like it's that freedom, that sense of like freedom and discovery of doing whatever you want, but it also has that Breath of the Wildness into it, to where like its story is kind of like not even second place, third place, probably like fifth place on the roster of like importance there. It is very
it's
much
more lore. It's more lore than story.
Exactly,
and that's always been like the From Software thing. So I feel it because when I look at the concept art that they put in, if you like check in the link that I put it for the story, it's like there's someone like in a horse with like a long blonde hair, that if like you pay attention to like the lore of Elden Ring, that's supposed to be Mikola,
Milana's sister.
Yeah, it's a brother. Mikola is like the brother for Melania, like the memeable Blade of Mikola. It was like the hardest boss ever. So maybe this is kind of gonna be like maybe a prequel to whatever you do in Elden Ring, but then it's like it makes the question of, will you be able to carry all your stats into your DLC? Like, that's the beauty of Elden Ring. Like, it's infinite customizability and versatility of the builds that you can create. And
are we sure it's a prequel? Because like it looks like that Tormund, the horse, is the same horse as yours, or at least like, so maybe this guy or like is out for revenge afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's that Mikola's technically dead, so that's why like I wonder if it's like a prequel, or they were gonna do something weird with like dimensions and all that. Is like the thing with Elden Ring is that it's like so esoteric, and like the kind of fantasy it is, that everything can work. It's like one of the big bosses, Starscorcher Radahn. He literally flies into the sky, jumps in the star, and throws the star to you. It's that kind of like fantasy anime. So it's like, oh man, Elden Ring is so good. It's like, but not my favorite game from last year. But I can't wait to play more of it. Like I literally can't wait. It's like it lives rent free in my mind sometimes. Of like the highs of this game are so damn high that I get why I won Game of the Year, even if it wasn't my personal one.
Because I should probably go back and give that another try, because
I would say this is the one game that, do you like using guides, or do you like trying to beat your games without like guides.
I'm a mixed kind of person. I'm one of those people who try it first, and then when my head is like bloodied against the wall because I've been beating my head against the wall so much, then I'm like, give me a guide. I'm not opposed to using a guide here.
Yeah, I would say try to do a guide, because it's like there's some moments from Elden Ring I would say are probably gonna be some of the best moments of this entire generation. Even just visually, and something like the boss fights you fight is like, man, Elden Ring is really special. It's like, it's to me like what prevented it from being my game of the year is that the final boss fight sucked. So
I as you know, I'm a single player gamer, but this is the one exception to where I'm almost willing to throw down the gauntlet of squatting up.
yeah.
I'm willing to do that for this game.
Oh yes, it's like, yeah, it sucks that the squatting up for Elden Ring is like so obtuse, but I have tried doing co-op. Some of like the elements is actually pretty fun. It can be fun, but yeah, Elden Ring pretty special. I mean, it sold 20 million copies, which kind of what we were talking a week or two ago when you were in, like, again, a single player non-live service game. Developers, look what people are like happily buying.
Hogwarts Legacy, Elden Ring, you know, exactly. Spider-Man's gonna do 20 million.
Oh yeah, especially if the Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales did 33 million combined. 2 is gonna like be insane.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be insane. So, story number 2, because I mentioned this game, Sebastion, earlier, like when we were talking about finding fun in games that are actually not good. Story by Wesley LeBlanc. Forspoken developer Luminous Productions merging into Square Enix. Following the release of Forspoken earlier this year, Square Enix has announced that the game's developer Luminous Productions will merge into the company. It's a strange announcement given that Luminous Productions was already a studio under the Square Enix umbrella, but now it seems that Luminous Productions as an individual entity will be no more, and thus won't be seeing its name appear in future titles. The merger is part of the company's efforts to bolster the competitive prowess of the group's development studios, a goal set forth under its current medium-term business strategy, a press release reads. Square Enix has developed numerous AAA high-definition HD games and possesses a wealth of intellectual property IP and content. Luminous Productions Company Ltd. is meanwhile equipped not only with AAA title development capabilities, but also technical expertise in areas such as game engine development. Combining the two entities will further enhance the group's ability to develop HD games.
Yeah, you know, the crazy thing is, I know a lot of people are going to be like, hey, you know, they put out I guess a lot of people would call it a stinker, so this is what happens afterwards. I feel sorry for him though, man. The human part of me really wants, because I want game studios to do well, and I don't want game studios to get folded into that, because like I don't want people to be marginalized on their ideas. Like, I bet Luminous Studios, even if Forspoken didn't go very well, could have made a good sequel for Forspoken. Or it could have made a new IP, like another new IP, took a swing at something completely different and nailed that one because they learned from their mistakes. But unfortunately, they're not going to get to actually like go off of their mistakes here. They're basically going to be support for another studio at this point.
Yeah, to me, it's like what makes this interesting was that Luminous Productions was a big reason that Final Fantasy 15 took forever to make because of the tools that they were trying to make it with. The Luminous engine is just not that great, and it felt like because look how quickly Square Enix pivoted to Unreal Engine. Like as soon as after like Final Fantasy 15 took like close to 10 years to make. And that's the thing, like I enjoy Final Fantasy 15 because I love the brotherhood camaraderie that it shows, like even though its story is objectively awful, but that game nails friendship in a way very few games nail. And the thing is that game, for a Final Fantasy, wasn't that much of a looker. It had like some of the problems visually that you also saw in Forspoken, which again brings into mind is like, yeah, this engine that at a time where many companies were trying to develop their own engines, that was Square Enix way, because the Luminous tool was what they announced back in like 2012 when we were in the eve of the PS4 Xbox One generation, and only one game came out of with that tool, which was Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah. And
then like quickly when they pivoted to Unreal Engine 4 at the time, that's Kingdom Hearts 3 after being dormant for a while, that's how it got done quicker. Final Fantasy 7 Remake got done quicker on Unreal Engine. And in particular, 7 Remake is a stunner. That's one of like the greatest looking games ever made. done in that other engine. So Luminous was always in this like weird thing, and I felt like they allowed them to do Forspoken because it was like, this team made that tool, we have that tool, we can't let that tool kind of just linger and sit there. Guys, make a game. And what they made was Forspoken, and we know how they turned out. I'll still say I had a lot of fun with it because it reminded me a lot of Infamous. It, like that kind of the way the powers you use in that game was a very Infamous like. That's why kind of like it put me in the Infamous mood to go play Infamous 1, 2, Second Son, and First Light. Like over the last few weeks, and I beat all of them because it was like, oh yeah, we haven't had a game like this. It's just like I wish everything around that combat was better than it was. So
yeah, I can understand that. It's also at that point to where like, yeah, a lot of the game mechanics of that game felt like they were just like you said, like Infamous like. That means like they were relics of an older generation and an older way we play games, and it's almost that comfort food of like, hey, I miss games like that. And you know, the sad part about the sad part about that is like a lot of people have kind of outgrown that style of games, especially reviewers who like sort of when you review a game, oftentimes, unless that game is like purposely going for nostalgia, you know, like a lot of the times we're always looking for like, hey, is this pushing the genre forward? Is this a good representation of what we got now?
The nostalgia that I felt playing that was not translated at all with the way it was being promoted. That just was like happenstance of like something in your brain clicking, oh, this reminds me of this. It probably would have been better if like that was more known for people, but also their demo was legendarily awful. Remember the demo they released in December? So yeah, it's like, look, at least they say that they're merging with Square. It's so weird. It's like, so they're just like absorbing like all the talent instead of it being like its own silo. So maybe not many people are gonna lose their jobs, but usually in these kinds of mergers, some lose it. But
I get sad because like it might be a job loss situation, and it also might just be like, hey, like we will never know what this studio would have been capable of if after they learned the lessons of like this. You know what I mean? Like,
you got it.
Yeah, and I'm like, look at some other studios that have like, you know, learned lessons off of quote unquote failures, so to speak, and the way they bounce back, and their next project is oftentimes like a great project, you know. So or
games that just had the potential. To me, like I go back to the Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2 thing. Like a new IP that didn't initially nail
the world on fire.
Yeah,
no.
it didn't set the world on fire. It did sales wise. A lot of people really got attracted to that idea, but from a critical standpoint, it was like it hit in places, it missed in others. But Ubisoft was like, took the time to learn everything that worked, the things that didn't, iron it out, and then the sequel was one of the greatest games ever, like one of the greatest sequels ever made. So yeah, that's why I'm usually like a big proponent of like the sequel that can improve things. And Forspoken didn't set the world on fire, either critically and sales wise. Like it came in, it charted on the top 10 NPD, but still relatively lower. So it's like, especially it being one of the 3 big tentpole games of the PS5 for this year, like that Sony was pushing us like exclusive, just exclusive, and this one just happens to be 2-year exclusive. I'm like, how do you guys get bamboozled into having a 2-year exclusivity of this one? But I digress. Yeah, it's like,
I will say this, you know, like, and I'm not trying to throw shade on any studio or anything like that, but if Watch Dogs could get 3 sequels, like. And I'm gonna be real with you. That first Watch Dogs was very shaky of a game. I'm like,
that was one of the earlier biggest disappointments of the PS4 generation, because that was the promise, that was the future. Remember when we first looked at Watch Dogs, how great it looked, and then when it came out, it was like a massive graphical downgrade. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and that's my point. Is like, if Watch Dogs can get that kind of treatment to where like they are like, the developers can come out with 2 other games, whether or not you like those 2, you know, it's up for personal preference.
Yeah, and in that case, Watch Dogs 2 I really liked.
I like 2 as well.
Yeah, I didn't like Legion much.
Legion's bad. But no, like, you know, my point is like, after all that's said and done, like, they got to learn from their mistakes and at least try with 2 new projects. And if I'm being honest, Square is throwing out games left and right here. I'm like, you might as well like continue on with at least a protagonist that is diverse and different than anything else we have on any platform so far.
Frey, to me, was like one of the best parts of that game. I
sure.
really like that era attitude. Like
Hmm.
I really like, especially like the things that maybe people may think is cringy about like the way that she was portrayed and the dialogue and all that. It actually worked in the context of that being a Japanese isekai,
Yeah.
and especially like to me when I saw that all the people in the fantasy world of Athia were like played straight like an actual fantasy, it made the contrast even funnier. Like, see such New Yorker like trying to like wade her way through like this super high fantasy Lord of the Rings style like prose from like the world of Athia. That to me really worked, and I just wish like the game looked better. It was like better presented. That the way it was marketed, it was like to me like that 30-second ad. I was like, no, let me get this straight. I'm in this new world. There's like freaking dragons, and I'm talking to a cuff and all that. It's like that 30-second ad did so much damage to that game in a way that didn't deserve it, that undermined it further. Even though like when you looked at it, you knew that it wasn't gonna be great because like it looked rough visually. Because
For sure.
Because the Luminous tool just wasn't that great. There's a reason why Square pivoted from that, and you can even see like the Final Fantasy 16 previews came out. I'm more excited for that game now that I've heard so much of what they've been saying, especially them compared to, especially when it was like in the kind of funny preview. The Michael Hyam was like, if you want to get ready for Final Fantasy 16, play DMC5. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a high bar.
Yeah, that's a high bar. Like that's legit really good. If we're like getting that, it's like that's how tight that combat's gonna be. Man, it's like Paul had a reason to put it as his number one.
Yeah.
Most anticipated game for this year because he's such a DMC guy. So, R.I.P. Luminous Studios. Decent attempt. It's like, unfortunately, it's like now we live in a point where I feel Watch Dogs got a sequel because at first Watch Dogs sold so much on hype. So the money justified it. I didn't think this one justified a sequel considering how Square Enix has become so stingy as of late. So
the crazy thing is they're probably the biggest like producers of video games this year. Like the amount of games they have coming out is just staggering.
Octopath just came out or about to come out, and that was like very well received also. So it's like it's insane. It's really insane. Like they at least are putting the output. So Forspoken is the end up drawing the short end of the stick, but they got Octopath Traveler 2 out. That's been beloved. They got Final Fantasy 16 coming in. That's a super highly anticipated game. Final Fantasy 7 Reverse may not come out this year, but has a winter release window being that close.
Yeah,
and Remake being that beloved, is like they still have some hits there. So.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's just the bigger games. They have so many like stupidly smaller games that are coming out later this year. I mean, what was it? Tactics Ogre.
That already came out.
Tactics Ogre came out.
In November. That was in last November.
Okay,
the week of Ragnarok. The week of Ragnarok. So.
Yeah, yeah, and then let's see. You have Dragon Quest 3 remake is supposed to come out. You have what was it? Rebirth is still scheduled for this coming up winter. Yeah, so I'm like, they got a lot of games coming out. Bobble 4, whatever the hell that is, but they got so many different games.
Yeah, they are. So they're at least wisely diversifying even after they shut off like their American studios. So because remember they had Crystal Dynamics, they had Eidos Montreal. So and now they're kind of like over at Embracer, and now Embracer kind of like
settled them down a little bit.
Yeah, not only that, is like they bought all three of those studios for $300 million, and then they sold the Tomb Raider IP that they used to Amazon for like $600 million. It's like they're like the way they wholesaled that whole thing is like, and Square Enix seem even stupider for how cheap they sold those things, for how much money Amazon spent just in Tomb Raider.
You know, the crazy thing is like I have a strong indication that they're about to sell to Sony, like as a company.
That's
and
fair,
and I just feel like they're just getting liquid assets right now to just do that. But they're right now, like I feel the reason that sale hasn't gone through is because of the Microsoft thing right now.
Absolutely, because if that were to happen, is like, it seems that merger is actually gonna happen. In fact, today I didn't put it in the news, but the EU cleared them. It's one of like the big three. They finally cleared them after the Microsoft signed the contract with Nintendo and Nvidia. So them signing that enforceable contract like cleared the EU of like any concerns of anti-competition, because they actually signed those contracts. So one down, and the FTC like wants to take them to court, but that they don't have like a legit a legit case to send them to court of like why would that would be intercom. So if that takes it to court, the FTC is going to lose. Right now, the CMA over at UK is the only one that has to like be convinced that Microsoft should acquire Activision. But in the meantime, Sony's going to try to like still try to stonewall that deal. But oh man, I just can't wait for that to be over, because then I just want other things to dominate the news cycle. So,
yeah.
like,
We both know. We both know that that's a losing battle. I think, and I think Sony knows that as well. I think they're just trying to like see what they can get out of it the most. Yeah,
but for them doing that, it's like it's making them look so much worse in the eyes. Like, you just think about it. It's like because of that happening, we missed an entire year without a showcase. That's insane to me. That 2022 went by with them like not saying anything. Like, at least big showcase wise. They still had some state of plays, like that still happened, but it's like not a showcase. That still like stinks. And there's rumors that they're finally gonna have one this June, because they gotta like start like promoting Beyond Wolverine. I mean, like you gotta like, because it's like they only have Insomniac games announced, Spider-Man and Wolverine. What else are the other ones doing? So
some people would probably argue right now, what else do you need, man? What else do you need?
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like it's always good to know, like,
what's coming.
Yeah, to me, that's why E3 2016 was such an important one for PS4, because they kind of emptied their load there, but just excitement of that E3, the one with the orchestra, God of War, the orchestra debuting God of War, Days Gone, seeing more a new look of Detroit, Last Guardian getting a date, Resident Evil 7 being revealed, Crash Bandicoot coming back, Death Stranding. Like
everything
Kojima,
was
like,
there.
Everything. That E3's legend. I always go back. I was like, man, I want to remember the hype. But then it always feels hype seeing it that way. Especially like the majority of those games ended up delivering. The only one that didn't to me there was Days Gone, and even then, Days Gone was decent. So
yeah. It spoke to a very specific type of person.
Days Gone to me, and I always talk with Paul, is like that's the kind of like the 6 out of 10 game that just speaks to you.
Yeah.
Like it was like that it's not great, but there's something to it that you just keep playing it. So, final story, Sebastion.
All right.
Also by Wesley LeBlanc from Game Informer, Star Wars Jedi Survivor director wants the series to be a trilogy. This news comes from a new IGN Unfiltered interview with the director, which is where Asmussen revealed that even before the release of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in 2019, the team was already discussing sequel ideas. For Asmussen, Cal's story has always been a trilogy in his head. We were already talking about the second game, said Asmussen. I mean, frankly, we were talking beyond. And these are conversations that when we're breaking this story with Lucasfilm, it's like, well, where are we going with the second game? I always wanted to see this as a trilogy. How can we take Cal and the crew to new places beyond what we were doing in the first game? Asmussen continues stating that Respawn had a good idea for Survivor, which is due out April 28th, takes place in terms of the Star Wars timeline. The team also knew what the stakes were going to be, what the tone was going to be, what Cal was going to be up against, and how his crew was going to be factored into all of that. On top of that, Respawn thinks about ideas that we could do beyond that as well. So,
beyond.
Yeah, beyond. IGN Unfiltered, like, I love Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN. I love those interviews. Like, he's such a great interviewer.
He really is.
You see, still, like, McCaffrey's one of the few personalities from IGN that I really give a crap about. It's like there's so very few of them now. So, yeah, like a trilogy for Fallen Order.
It's Star Wars. It feels like it deserves a trilogy. It would almost feel weird for anything Star Wars not to have a trilogy. It's just the way Star Wars works. Mm-hmm.
That's always how it worked. Even though one would argue that the sequel trilogy would have worked not being a sequel trilogy because
for sure
it needed more story for like the story to like, especially if they follow through with the story instead of chickening out over the reaction. But I feel like I'm more down for this trilogy because I know that EA will finally like put their money where their mouth is and put the support this series needs. That's kind of like when we were talking about the Hogwarts Legacy episode. Obviously, I personally like Jedi Fallen Order as a game also because I like Star Wars more than I like Harry Potter.
Yeah,
the craft I saw in Hogwarts Legacy at launch is what I wanted Jedi Fallen Order to have. Even though I look back at it, it's like it looks very plain and empty. Like you can definitely tell that not much money was put into Jedi Fallen Order. That's why it's been such a high profit for them because like that the game turned out good despite it feeling a little half baked. Ended up working out their benefit because it's like they saw the demand. Now Survivor has the money, and if it has a trilogy, if this game like hits as well, here's hoping. Here's hoping. Like crossing fingers that it hits just as well. Just based on the IGN first that they did that I've been looking, I was like,
it looks good.
It definitely looks good. It definitely looks like the kind of improvements it needed. Like it looks cleaner. It looks bigger. It's like it looks like an Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2 leap. If I have to like say something, as long as there's no T-posing, I'll be happy because like, that Jedi Fallen Order, I tell you, was really buggy when it first launched, but because it was a good Star Wars game after however many years, it was easy to overlook. It's harder now looking back, but it's like at the time was like, oh, finally a good one.
Yeah.
And Respawn's first ever non-shooter.
Yeah, that's surprising.
That was them. Like that's the Guerrilla. Whatchamacallit? Killzone going to Horizon.
Killzone, yeah.
Yeah, they managed to do it. So can't wait. Like to me, like this one, Survivor, is still my most anticipated game this year. Like number one is like, even with the delay was like made me more confident because like, okay, like I never expect delays from EA because EA is we say it's gonna ship when it's supposed to ship to hell or high water. We saw that. It was like, that's how Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda came out. It's like those games needed more time, but they're like, no, we're ready. Put it in. We're ready. We penciled it in here for this. It's gonna come out this year. Already launches. So I'm glad that they're taking more care of that. And again, like I'm being like, now I'm feeling like my Star Wars love is being rekindled again after
playing all those games.
Yeah, playing all those games. I'm like, yeah, it's like, yes, I need to like re-immerse myself with Star Wars because Star Wars was my favorite like franchise like ever.
Oh, really?
The discourse around it made me sick of it, especially around the sequel time, because the prequel discourse I was able to mostly like wave away because like I loved those movies growing up, so that didn't compute. Being like so into the discourse after, especially around Last Jedi, I feel the post Last Jedi into Rise of Skywalker kind of like discourse was like it was very damaging to like how I was like feeling about Star Wars because it just felt so miserable. It was like, I can't get excited about it. And then Rise of Skywalker sucked. That was the worst. Like, oh, now it's a movie that I legit didn't like.
Okay.
So that, but then Mandalorian season 2 was like, when it came out in 2020, it was like, it felt, especially in that year. Ending 2020 with Mandalorian was like so good. So
Mando.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to see the premiere for season 3.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I am mixed about it, but we'll definitely talk about it. I already talked to Paul about it. He hasn't seen it, but I'll just say this, since we're already in Star Wars. People, executive producers, showrunners, please don't use spin-offs and use those spin-offs to put very important story moments of another show. Book of Boba
That makes
Fett.
sense.
Yeah, it's like the season 3 premiere of Mandalorian suffers considerably for expecting people to have able to just watch Book of Boba Fett, which wasn't very good. So yeah, Book of Boba Fett I thought was a big disappointment. Like over like it was just when we got Mandalorian episodes in the middle of that season, like out of the blue, that I really liked that. But it's like no, it's like that Boba Fett show was like a big miss. And then the Obi-Wan show, I liking it but not loving it. And then Andor, like me, like just watching the first 3 episodes and not feeling
that love for it.
And not feeling that love. That's why I was scared. I was like, oh no. It's like, don't tell me that my love for Star Wars has dissipated. But no, thank you, Lego Star Wars. Even though I said you were disappointed in me last year, you didn't. I just needed to move from the weak part. But,
nah, the Force is awakened within you.
Oh yes, and I'm glad that, because that's the thing. Like, Star Wars is like, that was my childhood, man. Star Wars is just my childhood. It's still like, that's still my favorite franchise ever. So, game releases, Sebastion, for starting from February 27, because we didn't read them last week, to March 10. I've listed them, so take it away.
We got a smorgasbord of game releases, starting off with Destiny 2 Lightfall, coming at you for the PS5, Xbox Series X and X, the PS4, and the Xbox One. Oh my goodness, Xbox One still? Stadia?
Yeah.
Stadia, what?
Yeah,
and
well, I don't know why
PC.
Stadia is listed there, because... Oh, wait, no. It's weird that they put Stadia there, because they have already said that they were going to shutting it up, so that must have been like a mistype. But yeah, Destiny 2 used to be in Stadia.
Yeah,
you already heard my thoughts about it, so...
It has arrived on February 28th. Also on February 28th, you have Dungeons of Aether for the PC. Also on PC is Rhythmos, which is coming out on February 28th. It's also coming at you on Switch. Stars Above coming at you on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC.
That one got dragged to the streets.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
It's almost unfair too. That's almost what I was talking about. That double A, like double A indie games, to where there's some double A indie games that I feel like people see it, and because like indie games are starting to become very good graphically, they treat it like a triple A game.
Yeah, this one looked a lot like Returnal when I first saw
it.
It
is very much like Returnal.
So it bumped me out when I saw the reviews. I was like, maybe this screams Game Pass game. So
it does. Imagine if Returnal and Callisto Protocol had a baby.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you get. Leap is coming at us at the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and it releases March the 1st. So as of this recording, probably a couple of days ago. Ruined King, a League of Legends story. It releases for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, March the 2nd. I've never played a League of Legends game, by the way.
Yeah, what even is this? Is this like
I guess an expansion, maybe?
It's a conventional RPG set in the League of Legends universe with an exciting lane system that smartly reconstructs a standard turn-based loop. A turn-based RPG in the League of Legends universe. Interesting.
I'm more likely to play that than I am League of Legends, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, because League of Legends is so impenetrable to me.
Yeah, and also I like turn-based games. And plus, I really like the Arcane show, by the way. Really
amazing show.
Really enjoyed that one. Yeah. So next up, we have Wulong Fallen Dynasty.
One of your most anticipated games of this year.
The crazy thing is, still haven't touched it yet. Still haven't touched it yet, but I will very shortly. It's coming at us the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC.
And Game Pass.
Yep, on Game Pass, and it releases March the 3rd. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, PC, and it releases on March the 6th. You gonna be playing this one?
Oh yeah. I think that's gonna be one of the ones that I'm gonna take a little break from Destiny to play this because.
Okay. Did you play Dead Cells?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's back in 2018. Real good. Real good.
Outlanders for PC. It releases on March the 7th. Clash Artifacts of Chaos for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It releases March the 9th. Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. That is a mouthful. I like the name, though.
Oh, yeah.
Releases for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. It comes out on March the 9th.
Yeah, this was in the Nintendo Direct, I remember. So.
Oh, yeah. I remember this one.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's coming to everything other than Switch, because it looked like a Switch game. So. Yeah.
IB, or do you want to pronounce it IB?
IB.
I like IB. IB sounds funky. All right, so IB for Switch coming out at March 9th. No by Heart coming at you for the Switch as well, March the 9th. Monster Energy Supercross 6. Monster Energy still coming out with games? Wow. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, March the 9th. They were doing this Supercross thing for a very long time. I'm surprised they're still doing it.
Yeah.
This is like when you hear Burger King still making the Sneak King game. You remember that back in the day?
Oh, yeah. I remember the Sneak King game so well.
Imagine if there were 6 of those. Just imagine. All right, Oni, Road to the Mightiest Oni.
Yeah, that was on one of the indie Nintendo Directs. I remember it was like, a game that has this title twice in its title.
Hey man, when you're mighty, you're mighty. PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Switch, PC, it releases March the 9th. Sessions, Skate Sim. For the Switch, March the 9th is its release date. Before Your Eyes, blink if you heard me say that before. It's coming at you for PlayStation VR 2, March the 10th. DC Justice League, Cosmic Chaos. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, coming out on March the 10th.
Yeah, that's the cartoony one. I remember I showed it to Paul. It was especially after we saw the Kill the Justice League thing. I was like, oh, look at this other Justice League. It's like, I'd rather play that than Suicide Squad.
I think I would too.
Yeah. So from all these games, Sebastion, which one catches your eye?
I'm gonna be playing Wulong or Ruined King is probably the ones I'd probably play the most of, to be honest. But I think I'm gonna give Scars Above an actual like legit try. But everyone's crapping on it. I think I'm gonna give it a legit try to make sure that see if
you let me know, because you played Returnal, right?
Yeah, I played Returnal.
Returnal's real good.
Returnal's really good. I don't like the story at all, but I like the gameplay a lot.
Oh yeah, no, it's like the gameplay is all that it is, and it's how it's such a smart use of the SSD and how quickly like it puts you back in after dying.
Yeah, for sure. It is very much a PlayStation Showcase game.
Yeah, and a Housemarque showcase.
Yeah, I love me some Housemarque.
Yeah, they bought them after, which they should have bought them way before that. But I'm glad Housemarque was the reason they put the ring on it.
Might as well.
Yeah, Wulong, because it's on Game Pass, I'm gonna try it with Series S. But again, like after my Wild Hearts and Atomic Heart experience with Series S, I'm already like very gun shy of knowing that the games are just not gonna perform well on my Series S. So, but I'll give it a try. It's like I'll just download it. It's like I might need a little break from Destiny for how much I've been playing it for review. Which,
all right.
Yeah, it's
here's what I challenge you then. If you play Wulong, I'll play Wulong. We'll have a full single player experience discussion about it. What say you?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it is in Series S. Just to
okay.
If it's not feeling like something I want to put my time in, I will kind of like just let you.
Yeah, give it a 2-hour test, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I remember trying the demo that came out last September. I didn't try the demo that carries the progress for this because I was playing other stuff. I remember feeling like it was fine, but I was already soulsed out. I was like, because that year, like I played through so many Dark Souls games. That's when I beat Elden Ring also, and I played other. I was like, I feel like I need a little like
vacation from it a little bit.
A little vacation from it. So I feel like I've had enough of a vacation. So I'll give it a shot, and I am you. Like,
all right, sounds good.
And then we could do that in your other show, the Single Player Experience podcast, which you can find on Spotify. Right?
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all your favorite podcast platforms. You can also find it on YouTube. We're uploading video versions now, so everyone check out the Single Player Experience podcast for everything you love about single player games.
Yeah, and I usually show up there once in a while. I've showed up twice so far, so I'm due for a third.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're about to be a regular at this point. We're about to know your fast food order and everything.
Oh yeah. All right, Sebastion, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Single Player Experience podcast, where you always listen to all your favorite podcast platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it, we're there. So you can check me out there, and you can find me at Twitter at Sebastion SDM3. That's where I'm usually at. Or you could send me a carrier raven; it'll get to me eventually. What about you, Al? Where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at _Dorsegovia. They can find me on Instagram at AlejandroSegovia93. They can find some of my written content at thecriticalcorner.com, which I haven't written in a while because I've been more into season gaming over at seasongaming.com. So, Sebastion, always fun having you in. Thank you so much for 80. Like I prepped you in. I got you in more episodes than I was expecting, which I loved. So because you've been in like 3 in a row, I think.
Yeah. Just let me know whenever you need me. I'm available.
Yeah. So love it. So. And then let's see how it is with Paul. We may have to get you in for next week, depending on how this internet.
Just let me know.
Yeah, internet situation goes. And anyone else is gonna listen to this through either the video version, the audio version, or through Sebastion's grateful repostings that he does over at Single Player Experience. Well, thank you so much for listening. We love doing this. It's fun talking about games and all the things gaming in a positive way, as much positive we can do, not the trolley like clickbaity like a controversy that many others like to be swimming on. Like it's all about the purity of the fun, right, Sebastion?
Yeah, for sure. We would never say any controversial things over here, like Burger King is better than McDonald's.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think so too.
I think Burger King is better than McDonald's personally. So yeah. Do I like Wendy's more than the other two?
Same here.
There you go.
Team Frosty, let's go.
Oh yes, Frosty's the best. All right, Sebastion, I had you like for a good long time. Thank you for letting me rant to you about my experience with Destiny, and I'll see you the next time whenever we get you. And all everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, play some games, and remember,
press the X button. Peace.
To play. Hasta la vista, babies.